What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my Battlefield 4 Gun Locker, the series where I give you my analysis and review of all the weaponry in Battlefield 4. Today it's time to dig into the carbines, a class that I plan to get extensive time in. It's really just a great way for you guys to get better at the game. You learn these weapons, you pick a favorite or two, and you learn them very closely, and you can use these weapons with any class you want. It really helps kind of, soften the learning curve for everything across the board. Today we're going to talk about the ACW-R. We're going to kick it off with that weapon because when I think of this weapon, I think of massive potential. Why? Because as a new player, as you pick up the weapon, it can be a little unfriendly. It's got a high rate of fire coupled with a lot of vertical recoil. That's going to make it very hard to handle. Plus, it does have quite a bit of horizontal recoil, so in a new player's hands, this can be a tough gun to handle. He might throw it by the wayside and say, I just can't hit anything. It's a bullet hose. It's really hard to control, which I understand. But if you watch any competitive environment, any competitive match out there, you're going to see that this is one of the most popular weapons being used. And that tells you that this weapon has a ton of potential, and in the right hands, it can be a lethal weapon on the battlefield. Let's get right in and talk about the pros of the ACW-R. First, I spoke about the very high fire rate at 880 rounds per minute. It's only bested by the FAMAS and the AEK in regards to the carbine and assault rifle class. I don't want to start comparing it to PDWs and things like that because that's not really fair. But as far as in the longer rifles, assault rifles and carbines, it is the third highest fire rate, which I think that's a really good sweet spot for user friendliness, as I mentioned. It has one of the lowest reload times of the high rate of fire guns. It bests the FAMAS, the AEK by a wide margin. It's got a very, very nice reload considering. If you sort all the weapons by rate of fire on Simthic.com, you will see that its reload times are much better than anything comparable to it. Probably the most manageable of the high rate of fire weapons. Like I said, it's a sweet spot. The FAMAS has 1,000 rounds per minute. That is a literal bullet hose. It just climbs and it goes all over. It's very, very hard to control. It's just too much fire. That's great in a very close range environment. Hip fire, you're going to shred people, but it's very hard to control. It's medium range and out. Same could be said about the AEK, much harder to control. Now as you start getting up to the 880 range and below, all the way down to obviously the 416, the ACE, it's much more manageable. This to me is on the high end of the manageable area. You're just going to take some practice. It's going to take some learning how to compensate, but I think it is doable on a consistent basis, and that's why I think this weapon has so much potential. The weapon also has above average hip fire spread. Again, go into Simthic.com, look at the stats, compare it by the other weapons in the assault rifle and the carbine class, sort them by rate of fire, so you see it's right up there, and compare it to like the top 5 around it. You'll see that its hip fire is a little bit better than all the others, which is a very nice pro for this weapon. The recoil is balanced left and right. This also can be a bad thing, as I'll talk about in just a second, but for people that aren't very good at actually compensating recoil, the gun almost resets itself. It'll recoil to the right, recoil to the left, recoil to the left, to the right. It'll kind of help keep it in a general centered area. Again, if you're having trouble compensating, which I think you need to sit down and try to do, it's something I'm always working on. It is the way to go to get better, but until you're there, if you're having trouble, this weapon will set itself. It is a slight pro. I just wanted to mention it. Now let's talk about some of the cons of the weapon. Because of the rate of fire, the vertical recoil can climb very quickly. At 880 rounds per minute, with a pretty decent vertical recoil, if you're not compensating for that recoil, this baby is going to climb very quickly on you. The balanced horizontal recoil, as I mentioned, is hard to predict. It'll go left, it'll go right, it'll go left, it'll go right. So it's much harder to compensate. So a compensator really helps you out. Basically what happens is with a weapon that kind of only horizontally compensates to one side, between the vertical and the horizontal to one side, you can compensate very easily for that. You can predict that it's going to kick to the top and to the right, so you can compensate for that on about a 45-degree angle down left, right? So if you have a horizontal compensation that's randomly left or right, it's very hard to compensate that with the mouse. That's why the compensator attachment really helps, but that reliance on the horizontal compensator can really make it hard to put on great attachments like the suppressor that would go really well with the role that this gun plays. So it really is reliant on the compensator to help you be more manageable with this weapon. It makes it much more difficult to put things on like a suppressor or even a muzzle brake to help with some of that vertical recoil. So just keep that in mind. And lastly, the high rate of fire obviously can use up a lot of your ammo very quickly. Something you should always be conscious of. You're going to go through ammo much quicker with this weapon than you would with, say, the AK-12 or something like that. Let's talk about the recommended usage for this gun. This gun is very good in close quarter situations and very, very good for aggressive players. That is the ideal role for this weapon. Get up, moving fast, get in their face. You want to be hip firing or within say 20 yards, you will shred people. This gun will very, very rarely be outshot in a 1v1 situation. Sure, some of the PDWs, maybe a shotgun, maybe the AEK or the FAMAS, but we're getting into the outreaches of weaponry here, not your most common weapons. So you're gonna pretty much always gonna be on a flat footing with people as you come across in 1v1. Very rarely you'll be outshot, but not enough to really worry about. Longer ranges take some learning. You literally have to practice, put the time in, focus on it. You're gonna have to feather the trigger and fire very small bursts. It can be done. You can learn it. There is a skill gap on this weapon. If you put the time in this weapon, you will excel, and it will make you a more lethal player on the battlefield. That is for sure. Now let's talk about attachments on the ACW-R. Basically for the optic, what I recommend here is a Coyote sight or Cobra red dot sight. Why am I recommending these? Along with the HD33 hollow sight, all of these are the lower profile optics. They don't have the big bars around them, that type of thing, between the standard hollow and say the RDS sight. Those, I don't like the big bars around them. They block my vision in a close quarter environment, close quarter engagements. You're gonna want the lower profile so you have more peripheral when you do have to go aim down sights. A lot of times I'll use the standard hollow or the RDS sight, and I will literally lose enemies in the framework of this optic. I do not like that. I like the slimmer feature of the Coyote, the Cobra RDS, or the HD33 hollow. So those are the ones I recommend to you. As far as barrel, the best choice in this is the compensator, as I mentioned, to help tame that left-right recoil. It is by far the best choice. It is not the only choice, but it is the best. I'm going to mention them all in order. Suppressor, man, the suppressor really fits the role this gun wants to play. In your face, moving around, aggressive, close quarter engagements. Scream for the suppressor, but again, remember, if you're going to throw the suppressor on there, you're going to be losing that compensator effect of the horizontal recoil. Now the idea here is you're putting on the suppressor, you're trying to get closer, you're trying to hip fire. Maybe that horizontal recoil won't be as much of a factor. You're gonna have to use it yourself, make that decision yourself, but just keep those things in mind, okay? If you are struggling with the bullet hose effect, you're having a hard time compensating, I would probably not recommend this weapon overall, but if that's the case and you want to try, you want to learn it, or at least you just want to grind until you unlock everything, the muzzle brake will help you with that climb with the high rate of fire. The underbarrel attachment I recommend is for the more aggressive guy, the guy that's going to be running around a lot and you hip fire a lot. Obviously, I'm going to go with the ergo or vertical grip. For the more roundabout player, or the guy just you're on a map that's not quite all close quarters, you're not playing Operation Locker, that type of thing, I would obviously then go with a stubby or potato grip to kind of all around improve the gun. And lastly, the accessory, like always, it's pretty much a laser light combo. Really just a great combination, especially for the role this gun's going to fill. Moving, aggressive, in your face, close quarters. You don't want the lights and things to give your position away. So the way this works really fits very well with this weapon, as well as the role this weapon's going to fill. In summary, I really like the ACW-R. It's not one of the weapons I perform the best if you look at my statistics, but it is a weapon I plan to put a lot of time in once I get there. I see this has tons and tons of potential, as I mentioned in the intro. It's just, like I said, watch any competitive match out there. This is by far, one of the most popular weapons in there is Ace 23. You see ACW-R, you see some of the AEK in there, but it's definitely one of the, I would say, top 3, maybe top 4 weapons used competitively right now. And that again is because it has the high rate of fire, but it's manageable. You can still pick people out medium, longer range, and these are the guys with the skills to actually handle these weapons. So if you're willing to put in the time, you're willing to teach yourself this weapon, you will excel with this weapon. You'll rarely be outshot, and that's really what you want in a weapon. You want it to be up to your personal skill, not somebody just defeating you with better equipment. Like always, guys, thanks so much for watching. Let me know how I can improve the series. If there's something I missed out or something you'd like to see me talk about a little further, as well, any weapons particularly you want to see me cover, please add them down in the comments. I might not do them immediately, but they will go on my list, and I'll shift priorities, that type of thing, based on what weapons you guys are requesting. Thanks a lot, guys. I really appreciate your support. Hope you're having fun with Battlefield 4. I will talk to you soon. Take care, guys.